The first thing I noticed wasn't the silence. It was the sunlight. For 34 years, every morning sun had been blocked by a giant oak tree standing beside my farmhouse. When I returned home from a 2-week vacation with my wife, sunlight poured straight through my living room windows. I stopped walking. Something felt terribly wrong. My wife, Emily, looked toward the front yard. "Daniel, where's the tree?" I didn't answer, because I already knew. I just didn't want to believe it. I dropped my suitcase and ran across the lawn, where our magnificent oak had stood for more than 2 centuries. There was only a fresh stump, wood chips, tire tracks, and the smell of freshly cut timber. Someone hadn't trimmed it. Someone had erased it. A bright orange notice had been nailed to the remaining stump. Removed by order of Maple Ridge Homeowners Association Landscaping Compliance Project. I stared at the sign for several seconds. Then I quietly pulled out my phone. Not to call the police, not to call the HOA. I called someone whose number almost nobody keeps saved anymore. County Forestry Office. "This is Daniel Brooks. I think someone just cut down a protected tree." The woman on the phone became very quiet. "What kind of tree?" "A white oak." "Approximately how old?" "My grandfather believed around 200 years. Another pause. "Don't touch anything. We're sending an inspector." 3 weeks later, the same HOA president who proudly approved cutting down my ugly tree would sit speechless in a county hearing because that tree wasn't just old, it wasn't just valuable, it had been listed in a statewide heritage inventory for nearly 20 years, and replacing it would prove impossible. My name is Daniel Brooks. I'm 46 years old. I own a forestry consulting company and live on the same family property my great-grandparents purchased in 1941. The house isn't extravagant. It's a modest farmhouse surrounded by 12 acres. But one thing has always made the property special: the oak. According to local historians, it was already a mature tree before the American Civil War. My grandfather used to tell me, "Take care of that oak. It'll outlive all of us." He wasn't exaggerating. The trunk measured almost 28 feet around. Its branches stretched wider than many houses. Generations of children climbed it. My parents celebrated their anniversary beneath it every year. Emily and I were married in its shade. Our daughter carved her initials into a tiny wooden swing hanging from one of its lower branches. To us, it wasn't landscaping. It was family history. 5 years ago, Maple Ridge Estates expanded next to our property. The homes were beautiful. The neighbors seemed friendly. The HOA mostly left us alone until they elected a new president. Her name was Karen Mitchell. Karen believed every property visible from the subdivision should maintain premium neighborhood aesthetics, even if those properties weren't actually inside the HOA. The first letter arrived about 6 months after her election. It informed me that my oak tree negatively affected neighborhood appearance. I laughed, then recycled the letter. A week later, Karen personally knocked on my door. "Mr. Brooks?" "Yes." "I'm Karen Mitchell, HOA president." I figured. She pointed toward the oak. "Several residents have complained." "About what?" "It's old." I smiled. That's generally how trees become large. It blocks premium views. It also provides shade. It drops leaves. So does every deciduous tree. She crossed her arms. "We'd like you to remove it." "No. We're willing to recommend contractors." "I'm not interested. It reduces nearby property values." I couldn't help smiling. My property values have been doing just fine for 80 years. She left visibly irritated. Over the following months, more letters arrived. One claimed the tree looked unhealthy. Another suggested branches posed a hazard. A third stated the tree appeared visually inconsistent with newer landscaping in the subdivision. I ignored everyone, because the tree wasn't theirs. It stood more than 60 feet inside my property line. Then something unusual happened. One afternoon, A certified arborist named Lisa Reynolds stopped by. I wanted to introduce myself. You work nearby? I was actually contacted about your oak. By who? She hesitated. I probably shouldn't say. The HOA? She nodded. They asked me to inspect it. And? I refused. Why? Because they wanted me to declare it dangerous. She looked toward the tree. Without conducting a proper inspection. That caught my attention. What did you tell them? That ethical arborists don't write reports before examining trees? I thanked her. Before leaving, she handed me her business card. If anyone ever questions that oak, call me first. 3 months passed peacefully. Emily and I finally took the vacation we'd postponed for years. A 2-week driving trip through the Rocky Mountains. The morning before leaving, I walked beneath the oak one last time. Everything looked perfect. Healthy leaves, strong limbs, no signs of disease, no dead wood. I even took several photographs because the sunrise filtering through the branches looked especially beautiful. Those photos would later become some of the most important evidence in the entire case. Halfway through our vacation, my neighbor Carl called. Daniel, everything okay? You might want to come home. Why? I can't explain over the phone. My stomach tightened. Is Emily's mother all right? She's fine. The house? Also fine. What is it then? Carl sighed. I think somebody's been working on your property. I immediately checked my security cameras. No signal. The internet connection had gone offline 2 days earlier. I assumed it was just a storm. Now I wasn't so sure. We drove nearly 12 hours the next day. The moment we reached home, the oak was gone. County Forestry Inspector Melissa Grant arrived less than 2 hours later. She slowly walked around the stump, measured the trunk, collected wood samples, photographed everything. Then she quietly asked, "Do you know this tree's identification number?" "I think it's listed in the Heritage Registry." She looked up. "It is." "You already checked?" "I recognized it the moment I pulled into your driveway." She opened a state database on her tablet. There it was. Heritage Tree number HR-2187. Protected, documented, measured, photographed. Every 5 years for nearly 2 decades. Melissa slowly looked at me. "Mr. Brooks." "Yes?" "Who authorized this removal?" I handed her the orange HOA notice. She read it once, then again. Her expression completely changed. "You didn't approve this?" "No." "Did you apply for a removal permit?" "No." She quietly closed her tablet. "This is going to become a very serious investigation." Across the street, Karen Mitchell walked outside smiling, apparently proud of the neighborhood's improved appearance. She even waved. She had absolutely no idea that the tree she'd ordered removed wasn't simply an old oak. It was one of the oldest documented white oaks in the entire county. And before the investigation ended, experts would calculate a replacement value so large that even the HOA's insurance company would struggle to believe the number. The morning after the county forestry inspector visited my property, 3 vehicles pulled into my driveway. A state forestry truck, a certified arborist's pickup, and a white SUV belonging to the county environmental department. Neighbors gathered quietly across the road. Everyone wanted to know why so many officials were interested in one tree stump. Inspector Melissa Grant greeted me. "Mr. Brooks, we'd like to conduct a full assessment." "Whatever you need." For the next 4 hours, the team examined everything. The stump, the root flare, the surrounding soil, fresh tire tracks, even the remaining sawdust. Nothing was overlooked. Lisa Reynolds, the certified arborist who had warned me months earlier, arrived carrying specialized equipment. She carefully counted the annual growth rings visible around the edge of the stump. Then she compared the measurements with previous inspection reports. After nearly an hour, she slowly removed her glasses. "How old?" I asked quietly. She looked toward me. "My estimate is between 230 and 250 years." Emily covered her mouth. Carl, my neighbor, simply shook his head. Melissa wrote something into her report, then looked at Lisa again. Overall condition? Lisa didn't hesitate. Excellent. No evidence of advanced disease. No structural failure. No significant decay. She placed her hand on the remaining stump. This tree had decades, possibly another century, of healthy life remaining. That single sentence changed the entire investigation, because the HOA's original notice had claimed the oak was unsafe. The evidence showed exactly the opposite. Later that afternoon, Melissa asked another question. Do you know where the wood went? I pointed toward the empty space where the trunk had been. No. Carl raised his hand. I do. Everyone turned toward him. I saw logging trucks leave here last Tuesday. How many? 2. Company name? I took pictures. My heart skipped a beat. You photographed them? Carl nodded. I thought it looked strange. He handed Melissa several clear photographs. Each truck displayed the logo of a commercial tree removal company. Even better, one picture clearly showed the company owner speaking with Karen Mitchell. Melissa smiled for the first time all day. These are very helpful. That evening, the county contacted the tree service. By the following morning, investigators learned something unexpected. The company hadn't been hired to remove a dangerous tree. They had been told the property owner had already approved the work. When investigators informed the owner that I had never given permission, he immediately turned over every document in his possession. The work order, the invoice, the payment authorization, the signed approval. Only one problem. The signature wasn't mine. The detective assigned to the case carefully examined it, then looked at me. Mr. Brooks, have you ever signed anything resembling this? I studied the page. No. It isn't close. The detective nodded. We thought so. The signature on the authorization looked like someone had copied my printed name from another document. Not only had the tree been removed without permission, someone had apparently authorized the work using a signature that wasn't mine. Meanwhile, the story spread through Maple Ridge Estates. Residents who had supported Karen began asking uncomfortable questions. One homeowner approached me while I was repairing my fence. I honestly thought the tree was dying. It wasn't. We were told experts had inspected it. They hadn't. His shoulders dropped. I wish we'd known. Over the next week, more residents stopped by. Many apologized. Some even shared emails Karen had sent to the neighborhood. One message claimed the tree posed an immediate danger. Another insisted professional arborists recommended immediate removal. Lisa read both emails, then quietly said, I never wrote anything like that. Neither had any other licensed arborist. The county requested copies of every communication related to the project. Karen refused at first, then her attorney advised cooperation. The emails were turned over. So were meeting minutes from HOA board sessions. One particular meeting immediately caught investigators' attention. According to the minutes, one board member had asked, Has the homeowner agreed? Karen's recorded answer read, Yes, everything has been handled. It hadn't. Another board member asked, Do we have written approval? Karen responded, I've taken care of the paperwork. The room where investigators reviewed those minutes became unusually quiet. No one rushed to conclusions, but everyone understood why the county wanted additional interviews. A week later, the State Forestry Department released its official valuation report. The document filled nearly 60 pages. It considered species rarity, age, historic significance, ecological value, canopy size, carbon storage, wildlife habitat, replacement feasibility, landscape contribution, and heritage status. When Melissa handed me the report, she said only one sentence. You should probably sit down. I opened to the final page. The assessed value wasn't based on the price of lumber. It reflected the difficulty, indeed, the impossibility, of replacing a centuries-old heritage tree with one of comparable stature and significance, along with restoration costs and other recognized valuation factors. The total potential damages exceeded $1 million. Emily stared at the number. I can't believe it. I couldn't either. The money wasn't what mattered. I'd have traded every dollar just to have the oak standing there again. A few days later, the HOA called an emergency meeting. The clubhouse overflowed with homeowners. Insurance representatives attended, so did attorneys. Karen tried to reassure everyone. This matter is still under review. Before she could continue, the HOA treasurer stood. Our insurance company has serious concerns. Another board member added, they're asking why work proceeded without verified owner consent. Questions flooded the room. Who approved this? Did we verify the property line? Where did the authorization come from? Karen struggled to answer. For the first time since this began, she looked genuinely worried. 2 days later, my attorney, Rebecca Lawson, received a letter requesting mediation. She read it, smiled, and handed it to me. They'd like to settle. What do you think? I think they're beginning to understand the strength of the evidence. The mediation was scheduled for the following Thursday. Representatives from the HOA, their insurance carrier, the tree company, county forestry officials, environmental specialists, and legal counsel for every party would be there. As Rebecca gathered her files, she looked at me. Daniel, yes? I've handled property cases for 20 years. And? I've never seen one with evidence this complete. Outside my office window, I looked toward the empty patch of ground where the old oak had once stood. The space felt wrong, too bright, too quiet. Nothing could replace what had been lost, but the truth could still be established. And before the week was over, every person involved would finally have to explain exactly how a protected heritage tree disappeared while its owner was hundreds of miles away. The mediation began at 9 o'clock on a rainy Thursday morning. Representatives from the HOA sat on one side of the conference room. Their insurance company occupied the other. The tree service owner arrived with his attorney. County forestry officials, environmental specialists, and legal counsel filled the remaining seats. No one looked comfortable. Rebecca Lawson opened with a simple statement. This case isn't about landscaping. It's about removing a protected tree from private property without the owner's permission. She then presented the evidence in chronological order. First came the photographs Emily and I had taken the morning before leaving for vacation. The oak appeared healthy, with a full canopy and no visible structural defects. Next came Inspector Melissa Grant's report documenting the freshly cut stump, tire tracks, and the HOA notice left behind. Lisa Reynolds, the certified arborist, explained her findings. The tree showed no evidence of advanced disease or imminent failure. It was not, in my professional opinion, a tree that required immediate removal. The county then introduced records showing the tree's heritage status and years of documented inspections. Finally, the tree service owner testified. He explained that his crew had accepted the job because they believed the property owner had authorized it. When shown the disputed authorization form, he acknowledged that he had never personally verified the homeowner's consent. The discussion shifted to how the misunderstanding occurred. Emails and meeting minutes showed that HOA leaders believed the tree should be removed because they considered it unattractive and believed it affected neighborhood views. However, there was no evidence that Daniel Brooks had approved the work. The insurance representatives requested a private break. After nearly 2 hours of discussions, the parties returned. The HOA agreed to resolve the dispute without further litigation. The settlement included compensation for the documented loss, restoration of the property, long-term environmental mitigation, and coverage of reasonable legal costs. Because the agreement was confidential, the exact financial terms were not made public. The HOA also adopted new governance policies. No landscaping or tree work affecting neighboring property could be approved without verified written owner consent and an independent legal review. The tree service updated its own procedures as well. Future jobs involving boundary trees or neighboring properties would require proof of ownership before work could begin. Several months later, volunteers from the community joined local conservation groups to plant dozens of native oak saplings in nearby parks and public spaces. One young family approached me during the event. "We're sorry about what happened." "So are we." Their son looked at the empty space in my yard. "Will the big tree ever come back?" I smiled gently. "Not in my lifetime. But these new trees will help someone else's grandchildren one day?" He nodded and carefully covered the roots of a young oak with fresh soil. That moment reminded me of something my grandfather used to say. "We don't plant trees only for ourselves. We plant them for people we'll never meet." The old oak was gone. Nothing could change that. But its story inspired hundreds of new trees to be planted throughout the county. Sometimes the greatest legacy isn't what survives. It's what encourages others to protect. The HOA learned that property rights matter. The contractors learned that verification matters. The community learned that some things can't simply be replaced with money. And I learned that even after a great loss, something meaningful can still grow. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more original HOA stories featuring legal drama, property rights disputes, and satisfying justice-served endings. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.